Hey guys, still here, and welcome back to Stormworks, where right now we're kicking off episode 10 of the career campaign. I'm going to be operating this one solo, no supports, no other players here, because I'm going to be designing a helicopter. We have just enough parts to build one, and a helicopter is going to give you a lot more flexibility in these missions. Especially missions where it says, hey, you need to transport person A from position X to position Y, bring this, let's say, fisherman to a new boat, or bring this rig inspector to an oil rig. It is just way faster to do with a helicopter. So I am right over here at the Coast Guard Outpost TT. This is where you can build your helicopters. Now, of course, you can build your helicopters anywhere if you really wanted to, but this base is specifically designed for it. So I'm going to buy this one for 10,000. The hangar opens up, the lights come on, and we can now start building. Now they did get a nice bit of detail in here. They built one of these climbing walls, and they also have a basketball hoop over here with what passes for a basketball. Alright, let's go to build a helicopter. I gotta warn you though, I am not the best at making stuff look look pretty. That is definitely not one of my fortes. I can get it to fly most of the time. Emphasis most of the time, not all the time. And I can sort of make it multifunctional, but making it look like a Black Hawk or an Augusta Dolphin or something like that, definitely not likely to happen. Alright, we're going to start up with a seat. I want to have my, let's say with the general shape. I want to be able to transport 6 people on this helicopter. So I'm going to be sitting in the front. I will not have any doors. So it's just going to be an open helicopter. I suppose you could compare it, well, maybe somewhat to a Huey. Let's make those a little closer together. No. Yeah, that just doesn't quite fit. Alright, like this then. Closer to the chair there. Alright. So this is going to be the basic shape of the helicopter. This is how many people I want to be able to transport with me. Now another thing I want to be able to do is land on water. So I'm going to be using floats. Let's drag those over to the quick bar. The floats are going to be sitting on the side of the helicopter. And by doing that, and if you have enough of them, you can make the platform quite stable. And you can actually make this thing land on water. If you don't have enough, they will tip over. And that would be very bad for a helicopter. Now the question is always, where the hell do you leave all of your stuff along the lines of an engine? Because normal helicopters, they tend to place those in sort of jet engines on the top of the helicopter. And I just do not have those yet. So for the moment, I'm going to have those in the back. I'm going to go with 2 basic diesel engines. And I need to have those well above waterline because the thing will sink into the water quite a bit. So if I am doing a water landing, I want to make sure that somehow I can still keep those things operational. Okay, so that's going to be the engines. Now these things of course have their own problems. Normally we'd just have a pump out here and a pump out there, a coolant port, and you pump water directly into the ocean, but this is a helo. So that doesn't work too well. Actually, let's just take off this float. I think this thing's going to be a little longer. What I want to do here is have 2 radiators to make sure that my engine stays cool. So we're going to go with 2 fluid radiators. That means that these pipes are going to go directly towards the aft. So this is the one for coolant in, and this is the one for coolant out, and now I can have my cooling. I also have the exhaust, the fuel, and the air intake. Now the air intake is actually pretty easy. I can loop that off to the side, if I can get this pipe to rotate the right way, eventually. And I can just do this with a standard fluid port. So now the engine will get oxygen. Actually, I'm going to make that one bit longer. Because this is going to be the side of the helicopter. That's going to be the edge of it. Okay, that leaves us with a couple of connectors. We still have the one for fuel. Fortunately, that's sitting over here in the middle. And that is by design. So I can have my fuel tank sort of on top of this. And the other ones, also on the outside, are the exhaust pipes, or the exhaust vents. So again, we're going to go with pipes, and I'm going to make sure that these things just pump the exhaust right out of the side of the helicopter. So fuel then. Fuel, how are we going to handle that? Well, I do have the capacity of building custom fuel tanks, but for this particular helicopter, I'm not going to go with that just yet. I do have the electric cable, I also have the winch. Where am I going to put the fuel tanks? How much room does a fuel tank need? The medium fuel tanks are quite large. If I put it up here, would that work? Maybe if I raise it up a little. I suppose that could work. I just need to make sure that I have connectors on both sides of the helo as well. Okay, this is going to be a bit of piping first. So we're going to go with one pipe straight, then a T-piece, another T-piece. That's going to be where the fuel tank sits. So that's going to be rotated like that. There, now we have a fuel tank. And these ones on the sides, that's going to be where the fuel connectors, or sorry, the fluid connectors come out of. So I can actually put fuel into that tank. Alright, so that is pretty much the engine set up. Now we can make sure that this thing actually outputs power to our rotors, eventually. We're also going to have to build a tail for the helo. Because without a tail rotor, you're just going to be spinning round and round and round. Let's close that up a little. Now, this is where my lack of design capability really is going to start to show. Because now I need to build a tail. And normally, you can go about a tail with two different ways. You can transfer power from your engines to the tail rotor, or you can have a tail rotor that operates by electricity. And that's the one that I usually go with, simply because it is easier to use. It is a little easier to operate something like that. Because that just requires one small electric motor. It requires, let's see, where do we have it? Oh, please tell me we do have one. We don't have one yet. That was a bit of a miscalculation. We do not really have the type of tail rotor that I was hoping for. We just have a standard tail rotor. Okay, change of plans. We're going to go with the tail rotor, but it's going to sit on a small electric engine. The tail rotor is just going to be connected to that. Hang on, let me check that. Where's the connector port? Right. The connector port's over there. So the small electric motor needs to sit in an orientation directly back. And then the tail rotor has to be attached like that. Now we have our tail rotor. I can put one block up there, one block down there. There, that's your tail rotor done. So this thing requires quite a bit of room to actually rotate. Okay, moving up. We're going to move up towards the actual propeller. Sorry, it's actually the actual rotor. Can sort of top that up here. If I make this one angled, you're going to start to see an outline of this helicopter. And I'm going to go with an increasing block here. So this is going to be like that. Like this, connect it up over here. And now I can pretty much close off the engine compartment if I really wanted to, but I'm not going to do that just yet, because I still need to get access to the engines over here. So we're going to set up a pipe. I'm first going to go with a T-splitter. Actually, no, that can work. I'm going to go with a T-splitter because I want a generator on each motor to make sure that I can keep repowering my battery. So with those out of the way, we can go back to pipes. And I can make sure that this one is going to go up. And let's see, how tall do I need to make this thing? I'm going to do this with the windows. Let's first design the cockpit. And yes, this tutorial, well, this is not a tutorial. This episode's a bit haphazard, which is pretty much my design style when I'm looking at these things. What I really like to use are these corner windows. They just need to be up quite a bit higher. So we're going to have the corner windows here. That still leaves me with quite enough room to actually set up the instrument panels. So this is going to go over here. I'm going to set up a couple of large angled windows. And it looks like I can only get those in if I use the small ones first. Like that. And then one large angled window. Line that all up. There you go. Okay, now I can have this thing sort of closed off. And again, I'm going to go with a sort of a pointy nose here. Almost like you would have on a ship. It just doesn't really contain too much stuff at the moment. I do have access to the fluid cannon. Hold on, I might be able to use that. I might be able to put the fluid cannon on the nose of the helicopter here. Yeah, let's go for that. So the fluid cannon is going to sit over here, so that if something is on fire, I can put it out. This means that it's going to also require a tank. And a tank is going to require piping first. So we're going to go with a T-piece. Let's see, how big is that tank? Can I still fit that on there? I can still fit that on there. That is really nice. Let's see, change the T-piece. We're going to set up one tank. Then we're going to do the piping. It's going to be a T-piece closed. And it's going to be like that. Oh, crap, I forgot one thing. If you don't put pressure on this, it's not actually going to put out water at a high enough pace. So the water's just going to drip out of it, and that's not really going to be what we need for a fluid cannon. So we need to accelerate the water before it comes out of the pump. That means that I'm going to need a bit more room over here. So we're going to go with a bit of a longer nose, just so I have enough room for that. Alright, we need a fluid tank. Actually, yeah, I can go with 2. Then we're going to need pipes. So I'm going to connect these 2 up together. We're going to move that thing down. Hold on. If I rotate these things, that might make life a little easier. There. Now I can just connect them together immediately. Like that. Then I'm going to need at least 1 pump. I only have 2, unfortunately, so I'm going to go with 1. And that's going to have to be it for the moment. Important to note is what the output of the pump is. And if you have one of these circular things on it, that is the fluid out area. The problem that I see with the helicopter right now is that these tanks are going to be transporting water, so they're going to start out full. And until I get more pumps, I'm not really going to be able to actually resupply that pump. Or resupply those tanks. Yes, I could have another pump on there if I really wanted to, but I foresee this helicopter getting crashed or lost at some point. And if that happens at some point, then I also lose my 1 pump. So I'm hoping that that A doesn't happen, and that B, we unlock a new, unlock the actual pump pretty soon. Okay, now I can start to work on the nose. So I'm going to have, let's see, 1 block here, there. There's a lot of unused room in the nose, come to think of it. But I don't really see what I'm going to be able to put down there. This is just going to have to be like this for a bit. How am I going to do that with the cockpit then? Alright. Change of plans. I can definitely use the fluid tanks, but they don't need to be right there. I can put the whole assembly underneath the helicopter, instead of having it on top of the helo like I do now. So we're going to go back with designing the cockpit, and then I'll put the fluid cannon underneath it. Let's see, make the nose. Windows first. I think they need to be about this high. Yeah, that should be... No, one more block. This should be enough room. Alright, so we're going to need the narrow angled ones. And then the big one. Like that. And now I can start to work towards a nose over here. Come on. And this is always where I run into trouble, because how do I continue on with this nose design? I can keep it like this, but that looks like shit. And let's see, if I take this thing off. The problem is this little angle over here. See, I could use the other narrow angled window, that one. Just continue building this cockpit out like this. But I don't think that I'll actually be able to look out of that part anyway. Sitting from over here, these blocks are going to be in the way. And if I remove them, then I have an open cockpit, which is, again, not really what I want. So let's just... Yeah, we're going to have to do it like this, I guess. Now, I also want to stress that this is just going to be a sort of an early helicopter. It is not going to be the end-all, be-all of helicopters, because I simply do not have the parts that I want yet. Eventually, you're going to have a lot more parts, and with that, a lot more flexibility on how you can build this helicopter. Alright, let's set up some displays. Not in mirror mode. I also have a linear speed sensor. I'm going to put that thing over there. Now, I have a speed microcontroller that I always use in this. It just transforms the raw meters per second coming out of that thing to kilometers per hour. So I'm going to plunk that thing down there in the back. Hook up the logic. This one goes to the display, and this one goes to the microcontroller. So with that, I can now see what my speed is in kph. And I don't want any decimals. Do I have an altimeter? I do. That is also quite the requirement on a helicopter. So that's going to be the altimeter. And this one goes directly to the altimeter. Okay, so now we have altitude and speed. Something else that would be handy to know is how much fuel do I have. So we're going to go with a dial display for that. Do I have a horizon yet? I do have a horizon. Let's put that in that place then. And if I sit over here, I can sort of see that, but I'm going to go with the dial on this side. So this is going to be fuel. Now I know that I have two of those, correction, one of those, so that's 187.5 liters of fuel. So that is between 0 and 187.5. And this thing gets information from the fluid contents of the tank. We're also going to need some controls. I'm going to need a throttle. And the throttle is going to sit over here. That's going to directly control the engines. So how much power are the engines putting out? What else do I want? Yeah, let's go for building the roof of the helo now. Oh, not over there. That might actually be too tall. I think I can... Oh, that was the throttle. I think I can go with one block less over here. And now I need to find a fashionable way of making this thing look good. Rotate that in place. May have spoken too soon there. Come on. That will do. And put that block over there. As long as I can reach my passengers, I'm fine with it. So I can just keep these as a sort of an intermittent beam. I just won't really be able to access that middle seat at the moment. So we're going to go with... Oh. This thing needs to be here, over there. Okay, so this is going to be the roof of the helicopter. This is sort of what it's going to look like. I can make this thing go down here. And that also gives me more real estate to put up a few more dials if I need them. So it's starting to look like something that in a distant memory resembles a helicopter. Let's put up a few more seats. Oh, right, I was not going to put the seats over there because I want to be able to access them easily. That's actually too small. Here, now I can still get in. And again, as I mentioned before, it's going to be a pretty open helicopter. I need a 3x2 window. There. Okay, so now I need to make sure that my engines actually go towards the main rotor. For that, I'm going to need to partially close this thing up to see how much room I'm going to have left. It's going to be important to have a clutch on here. And I can sort of fold those things in here, I think. If I go that way, I can go up. Yep. So we're going to go with a pipe. It's going to go back. Then I'm going to go up one block. Up or back another one. The reason for this is that by doing this, I can sort of fold the equipment that I need inside of the helicopter. Like a clutch. I can have this thing come up, and that's going to be an enclosed pipe angle. There. Now I can have my clutch. Let's see, that's output B, so that's all working correctly. Next we're going to go up, because this is going to be where the rotor is going to be. So that's just going to go up through here. Yeah, it's probably going to come up between the seats. Back to pipes. Straight pipe. I think that this is enough, because if I'm not mistaken, then that... Yeah, that's the last angled block. Pipe angle goes up here. Straight pipe goes through here. Not two of them. We should now be able to see that thing come up here. Exactly. Alright. Now I need another pipe angle. Let's take the roof off. Okay, this is the center of mass. That little block over there. The transparent one. So that's eventually where I want to have my rotor come up. The problem is, I'm going to need a gearbox or two. So this is where there's going to be a sort of slight imbalance in the helo. because I'm going to go to the side with a gearbox. That's going to be one gearbox. I'm not sure if I can actually run two with this thing. That remains to be seen. Because those engines together are putting out a good bit of power. And I'm wondering if it's going to be enough. Oh, wrong pipes, by the way. Those need to be the angled ones, the enclosed ones. Otherwise the roof is going to be, well, looking like a pipe structure. Rotate that up here. And now I can put the rotor on there. Tail rotor, large rotor. The large rotor requires quite a bit of room. And requires a connection like that. So I can have that thing somehow melted into the top side of the helo like that. And change the piping here. It might be a bit too far forward. Yeah, it's definitely too far forward. I'm gonna have to experiment with this a bit. Let's see, there's my center of mass. So that's where my rotor needs to be. It is it angled? No, it's off one block. Try that again. Now it is sitting exactly on top of the center of mass. So the other gearbox is going to be on this side. I can have that over here. Like that. Actually, I don't have to put it over there. I can just put it over here. There you go. Back to pipes. I also want to have one more T-splitter over here. To make sure I can have another generator. Because the generators which are behind the gearboxes, or generator, singular, they're always going to have more RPM. Which means they're generating more power. So I want to have a third generator back here. And since I'm running an electric engine to power the tail rotor, I'm going to need quite a bit of electricity generated. And there you go, that's going to be the basic shape of the helo. Now we still have a bit of room back here, and that's where I'm going to put down a battery or two. Provided I can fit a nice little cranny to fit them into. Oh, here, behind the seat. Mirror that. There you go. I'm going to take one add block to add up the power from both the batteries to see how much power I still have left. There you go. That was going to be fuel. The next one can be battery power. So this is going to be battery. It's going to output something between 0 and 2. Because it takes up 1 point for each battery. So that goes to the add block. Alright, the other side is also going to have some dials. And I start those 2 blocks from below. Oh, the throttle's in the way. Now I should have enough room. Now I don't really care much for the temperature of the engines, but I do want to know what RPM they're operating at. So this is going to be the RPM, and this is going to be the other RPM. This means that this is the RPM right, or actually rotations per second, not rotations per minute, because then you'd have to multiply it by 60. 0 to 25, so let's go with RPS left and RPS right. Alright, we're also going to need a push button to actually start up the engine. That'd be quite handy. So this is going to start the engine. And with that, I can actually start my engines. Now I need a toggle button for the clutch. I don't immediately want that thing to be giving power to the whole system. So this is going to be the clutch. And I will have one of those on the control systems to make it easier. I'll explain that in a sec. Now I do have a clutch microcontroller that I always use. This one is simply a switch box integrated into one microcontroller. So this is the signal that goes from the clutch toggle over there. And I have a tutorial on this if you want to know exactly how I did that. This one goes to the clutch. I'm going to have the gears, so the gear boxes, always on. Let's go with a 1:2 ratio for this one. And a 1:2 for that. I want to be able to toggle the second one. Just to see how much I can get away with. So that one's going to be always on, and this one is going to be toggleable. So increase gear. And now we're going to be really getting into the bread and butter of everything, because now I need to set up the logic, and more importantly, I need to set up the system that keeps the helicopter stable, the gyro. Now a gyro is basically a large microcontroller, a sort of a PID that keeps the thing as stable as possible. It has a lot of inputs and outputs, 8 of them in total, plus one that toggles on the auto hover, yes or no. Now, I always want this thing to be on, so I'm going to send it a constant on signal to make sure it is always keeping the helicopter stable. I want the stabilized yaw to go to this motor. So the electric motor drives the tail rotor. I want the yaw control, so that's whether the helicopter is angling left or right, to be A or D. Left and right is going to be the roll, because I, for one, don't usually use that. And the roll output goes to the main rotor. That goes to this one. Next, we have the collective. That's going to be the stabilized up or down. This is going to be the pitch, and the pitch goes to this one. The pitch takes its input from W and S. Do I want to be moving forward or do I want to be moving back? And this one goes to up and down. Now I need to make sure that this thing is not set to positive, but to neutral. A helicopter works by changing the angular, or changing the angles of the blades. And by doing it this way, I currently don't have any lift force unless I change the collective. So unless I change the collective, the blades will be neutral and don't generate lift. So now we're going to set up the controls. 1 is going to give me more throttle. 2 is going to give me less throttle. So 1 is going to give me throttle up. 2 is going to give me throttle down. But these things need to be push, not toggle. If you toggle them, then they're always going to be sending a signal, and I don't want that. 3, I'm going to be using for the clutch. So this thing connects from push button 3 to the clutch. We still have a couple of buttons left. For example, up and down. This is going to be the collective. This one I do want to set as a sticky, so that the collective is moved up or down. Left and right is going to be the roll. W and S is the pitch. And A and D is going to be the yaw. Again, I want all of these on reset, because if I release the control, I want them to jump back. I don't want them to actually do anything else. Okay, so that's the basic shape of the helo. We can put fuel in it. We can use the gyro to keep it stable. We have the gearbox. I think we can work on the next part of the helo now. And that is going to be how to set up the fluid cannon. And potentially the winch as well. But I'm going to do that in another episode, because this one is long enough as is. So join me for episode 11 soon, as we're going to be continuing work on this helicopter. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon for more Stormworks.